update in my Midori Hibino. And I know we're only a month in, but so far I am absolutely loving this book. It is treating me so well, and I can't wait to show you how things have been going. As a side note, my dog Coconut is sick right now. He has kennel cough, and that means that he is coughing a lot and breathing really heavily through his nose. So if you see a lot of cuts in my edit, that's just me trying to cut out his coughing. And if you hear a very subtle snoring in the background, then that is Coconut trying to sleep and breathe in peace. So I do have an agenda. So I'm going to open this up and remind myself what we're going to cover today. I'm going to just talk a little bit about some context as to why I'm in this book. I'll talk you through this POTR Stroll that I've been using as a cover. I'll do a flip through of how my January has been looking, and then I'll just talk a little bit about some surprises or things that I've learned, and then I will share some recommendations and suggestions on covers that fit and different ideas for some of the sections that were crowdsourced from viewers' comments. There were so many great suggestions that I actually am also going to create a document that I will link in the description. So any new suggestions that come my way, I will add to that document so we can all learn from each other and be inspired from each other and help each other out if we do take on the Midori Hibino and are looking for some help in filling out the pages. Let's get right into it. Some of you may already know that for the past 2 years, I was using the Hobonichi A6 Original and Weekly Supplement as my main planner. And 2 years ago, I was kind of compartmentalizing different areas of my life. So my planner was mainly for work-specific tasks, and then I had a meal planner for meal planning. I also had a Hobonichi Weeks that I was using as a health and wellness tracker. And then last year, I did a one book July experiment, which I guess looking back has kind of changed my whole planning approach. But I experimented with eliminating my 2 extra Hobonichi Weeks that I was using for meal planning and health and wellness tracking. And I found a way to kind of Tetris it into my A6. So that was going really well. And as I was nearing the end of last year, I came across the Midori Hibino again. I had known about the book, and I actually held the book in my hands in Japan in 2024. Almost bought it, but realized I had no idea how I would use it. So I kind of put it away, put it aside, and thought I would revisit it at the end of 2025 in case I wanted to maybe consider it for 2026. What I really love about it is it had enough space for me to do everything that I was doing in my A6 Hobonichi, but also the weekly supplement and the Hobonichi Weeks. And the Hobonichi Cousin. So I was actually using the Hobonichi Cousin kind of like a study book, where I really appreciated the A5 page and how much you could write in it, because sometimes when I'm taking study notes or when I'm just needing a space to think on paper, the Hobonichi Cousin was a lot more suitable for that compared to the A6. And I realized in experimenting with the Hibino that it's not just the size of the page, it was also the grid size. And so the grid size in the Midori Hibino is like a 2.5 millimeter. And because I already have small writing and I also have a variety of fine and extra fine nibbed pens, I really didn't mind writing in the small grid, and that allowed me to eliminate the need for a separate notebook as well. But I could have that all in a portable A6 size. And so that is why ultimately I decided to switch from my beloved Hobonichi into my Hibino. And oh, of course, I also forgot to mention the Hibino is cream paper, and I adore cream paper. At this point, it's a little bit of an obsession, but there's just something very calming and soothing and pleasing to my eye when I'm looking at cream paper as opposed to white paper. And so it was just this little extra perk of being in this book, in that it also had the color of paper that I preferred. This is the Hobonichi POTR Stroll, and this was part of the fall 2025 release. My understanding is that Porter has been collaborating with Hobonichi for quite some time, making this style of cover, but they weren't available outside of Japan until fall of 2024. So in 2024, for 2025, they released a like forest green cover for the A5 and then a black for the A6. And then I was delighted when they came out with this light brown color for fall of 2025 for the 2026 season. And I was even more excited when I heard that this POTR Stroll was a roomier cover, which meant that you could fit a Hibino in here. And so I took a chance and I ordered the POTR Stroll, and I absolutely love this cover. So it's not for everybody, but I just love, like, it's a very light cover. So the Hibino could be a very chunky book. It could be on the heavier side. So I think pairing it with a lighter cover works really well for this book, because I do still value portability and I like being able to take this with me everywhere. It does come with a strap, and I do sometimes wear the strap when I'm out, but I do find that it's a little annoying to have on permanently. So if I'm just sitting at my desk, I find the straps kind of irritate me. So I only attach the straps when I'm about to take this out of the house. Otherwise, I keep them off. I love that it has like this little buckle. If I'm kind of carrying this around my home, I'm usually carrying my pencil cases and maybe my traveler's notebook. So it's a kind of unnecessary but delightful addition that I can kind of carry this with one finger and have enough room to carry a bunch of other things around my home. So, but that's obviously not like a selling point. It's just a really nice feature. I also really like that they have these extra pockets. So sometimes I will put a sticker release book in here. So I like that it just fits really well. It also fits a traveler's notebook passport, but because the Hibino is a bigger book, I don't use the pockets for anything too bulky. Sometimes I will clip something here and I think it just fits really well. And if I do open it, it doesn't really affect the writing experience too much. I just find that if I'm taking this out and wearing it, I've had this slip off sometimes. So if I'm carrying it around the home, I don't mind having the clip here. But if I'm taking it out, I usually take the clip off. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you open it. The POTR Stroll does come with two of these bookmarks, but I didn't really find that they worked that well with the book, although maybe I'll try it again, because the ribbon that comes with the Hibino doesn't really fit very well. So what I mean by that is, I don't know if you can see here, but this ribbon is actually a little bit fraying a little bit, and that's because it has gotten caught in the zipper a few times. So actually, as I'm saying this, maybe I will try, because this is a shorter bookmark. So I'm wondering if maybe it would be a better fit. So what I do is I tuck in the ribbon like inside the cover here. So maybe I'll just try that for next time. And then I think I'll probably tuck this, take this out for a second, gonna tuck that in here because I don't plan on using it for now. But let's see. Yeah, actually, maybe I should have been using the ribbon that comes with it. So anyway, okay, so that's how I'll try that out. In the front flap, there are some credit card slots, and I keep my stencils in here. I've been trying to use my stencils a little bit more this year because I have quite a few, and I try to keep this book as lean as possible, which means very minimal stickers. And so it's kind of forcing me to be maybe a little more creative with adding things to my pages in other ways apart from stickers. So stencils is one thing and stamps is another. So yeah, I keep my stencils in here. And then this is another Hobonichi stencil, but this is my favorite one, and it's because it's longer and I love how flexible it is. So if I need to make lines, it can kind of mold to the book. So if this book starts to get really fluffy, I just find that you can kind of make a straighter line if the ruler is kind of staying on the page, if that makes sense. So I do have a brass ruler, which I love as well. But I find honestly that I use this a little more than the brass ruler these days. And then I also have tucked into here a Traveler's Company brass pencil. And this is a Blackwing pencil that I just cut down to fit inside here. And I like it because it allows me to use my Blackwing pencils, but I can still use this brass pencil holder, which I love because it is a cap for the pencil part, which means it's less likely to get pencil marks all over my books. So I really like having that tucked in there. And then there's this extra flap here, and I just have a sticker from a local, I think it's a local Toronto artist. I bought this sticker at the Toronto Stationery Show, and I just love this little illustration. And I just have a couple of stickers here. This was a sticker that was gifted to me by one of my patrons, and I believe the artist is Lazy Suze. And then this is a sticker from Johan, and these were gifted to me from Wonder Pens. I love this little character. I have a few of her stamps. But I love that. I think this is a dog. I'm going to say it's a dog. I feel like there's not enough stickers that highlight dogs. There's a lot of cat themed stickers, and don't get me wrong, I love cats, but I do have a dog. I'm a dog person, and I really love that this character has a dog. And then I have another one here on the front, and I just really love how cozy this feels. Like a girl, her dog, maybe a glass of wine, and a book hiding away from the world. So that's the front cover, and as the year goes on, I think I'll probably add more stickers here, but I'm not pushing it or I'm not rushing it, so we'll see how this evolves over time. And in this front flap here, I have a blotter paper, and this was also a gift from a viewer, and I really love it. I don't keep it tucked in here because I find that it tends to fall out if I'm using my planner and I'm writing, say, on my lap. Sometimes it can kind of bend a little bit, and I find that anything tucked in here tends to fall out. So I keep everything that I need in this pocket. So I've got this blotter paper, I've got a Traveler's Company passport size pencil board, and I like this one because it's thicker. So if I really need a hard surface, I find that this one is a bit better. I have a Hobonichi pencil board. This was also from the 2025 fall release, and the artist is Iu Okumi, and I just love this illustration, and I think it just goes so well with the Hibino and this cover. And then on the back, I've printed a feelings wheel that I just reduced to a smaller size. I think this is 30%. I printed it and cut it out, and I just stuck it on the back with washi tape. And I just like having this around in case I am wanting to do some journaling or some micro journaling, and I'm needing a little bit of help in trying to identify how I'm feeling. I recommend this in my workshops, and I recommend it to my clients, and I use it myself. So I wanted to have one handy, and as an unintended nice surprise, I feel like this actually fits in really well with the color scheme of the pencil board. So I actually really like how that looks. And then I have a Hobonichi A6 sized folder. This is the 100% orange. Was very tempted to get the Hobonichi Weeks cover of this collaboration, but I decided to just invest in the folders instead. And so in here, I keep my transfer stickers. These are from Pion, and then these are from Traveler's Company. And I am looking for some more transfer stickers. I'm finding them kind of challenging to buy locally in Toronto. I know there's the MU brand, there's Pion, but I'm having trouble finding them in stock. So I'm also wondering if there's other artists or other brands that make really nice transfer stickers. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I did come across these transfer stickers from this brand called Urodu, and I found this at the Toronto Pen Shop. I haven't tried them yet, but I love the colors. I think these are beautiful, and I'm looking forward to putting those in, trying them out in my Hibino. And then in the back, there's a mesh pocket here, and this is where I keep my vanishing point. I decided not to use the pen loop here because a few people had mentioned to me that it can affect the lining on the outside. And so because this is quite a thick book, I didn't really want to stretch this cover too much. So I've always just kept it in here, and I find that it's pretty secure. So I keep just one pen. This is my Pilot Vanishing Point. This has been my everyday pen for the last 3 years. I love this pen. And I tend to use document inks in here so that I can write and highlight over in my planner. And I have several different shades of brown document inks. So I pretty much just cycle through a few different brown inks depending on my mood. Right now I have Diatramentus Document Brown in here, and I love it. So that's my cover. Let me know if you have any questions about anything with this cover. Overall, I absolutely adore this cover. I think it is just perfect for the Hibino, even though it wasn't necessarily like technically made for it. And a very unexpected and pleasant like discovery is that since I've been using this, I have found that this kind of padding has made it so that writing on this side of the Hibino is not unpleasant, because it is such a thick book that I was worried that I was going to have issues like writing on here until later on in the year when it evens out. But I think because there's like so much stuff, like there's so much padding here, it kind of raises this side and it just makes it easier to write on. I mean, I'm not saying it's like a perfectly flat surface, but I've barely needed to use this pencil board when I'm writing. I haven't really needed it. I'm not doing like long form journaling or anything like that, so maybe that makes a difference. But yeah, I just wanted to call that out. So now I'm going to do a flip through of my pages. So on this cover page, so far I have this one sticker, and I think over time I might add some more stickers here. This is the overall yearly page. I still haven't done anything with this. I think I mentioned in one of my videos that I might put a little sticker on the month as they end, and I might still do that. I still have not decided what I want to do with this future log. In a couple of my videos, I received some amazing suggestions on how people would use this future log, and I really wanted to share them with you in case you're also struggling with making a decision on how to use it, because I would have never thought of some of these on my own. So some of the ideas were to use it as a one-line weekly summary page, future log for next year, track upcoming streaming shows and book releases, cycle tracker, and any related symptoms to your cycle, the highlight of the month or lessons learned that could kind of help with like a year in review, a monthly currently inked, monthly bucket lists, upcoming birthdays, and electronic subscriptions and when they'll be billed, just so that could help with budgeting. So I just love the range of like functional, reflective, and creative ways to use the future log. And honestly, I think I'm just having like decision paralysis. I can't decide what I want to do with it. So I'm going to leave it for now, but maybe by the end of Q1, I will try to challenge myself to just make a decision, because I can tell there's a bit of my perfectionism coming out where I'm wanting to make like the right decision. And in this case, I think just a decision is going to be better than making no decision. But I'm also going to create a document that consolidates all of these suggestions so that we can have it as a resource moving forward. Next, we go into the monthlies, and the way that I have set up my monthlies for now is it's one of the only spaces in my Hibino where I'm using stickers for now, just because I am trying to keep this lean so that I can keep this book in this cover for the entire year. And I think if it bulks up too much, I'll have to find a different solution, and I don't want to do that. So on the side here, on the left side, I have an index, and the number corresponds to the day of the month. So throughout January, I did this at the end of the month. Throughout January, I just wrote down if there was something on that day that I knew that I would want to go back to. So for example, on January 1st, I have a steps and workout tracker. So January 1st, steps and workout tracker. This is something that I'm going to continue coming back to throughout the year. And so I marked it down here so that I can easily find it again. And then in here, I've just been adding some stickers as I feel like it. And I'm just kind of noting down some names of people that I've spent time with. The pen that I'm using is my Benu Euphoria 1.1 stub, and this is Sailor Manyo Haha, which is a beautiful ink. I've also noted down in pen some events that I think I might want to come back to, like my allergy shot, when I saw the vet. I didn't put it down here yet, but we had a car service, so that's something that I would probably note down here. And then I also just noted down when we were on vacation. Okay, so that's how I'm going to do my monthlies for now. Then we go into my dailies. And so January is going to be a little different from the rest of the months, and that's just because this book doesn't have a lot of blank pages in the back like the Hobonichi Techo does. And I knew there were some collections that I wanted to have, or like year at a glance pages that I wanted. So I decided to allocate some of the first days of January towards that, because looking at my planner habits from previous years, I very rarely use the first few days of January, mostly because I'm still not back to work and I'm not really needing to use my planner for any kind of planning. And so I kind of set this all up before I moved into the book officially. This is my steps and workout tracker. This is my third year of doing this. And the original layout was inspired by the year at a glance, or the yearly Calendex spread in the Hobonichi system. So it's just each column is a month, and then I have the corresponding weekday and the corresponding number day. In each of these columns, I just write down my steps for the day. And then I have a color code where this brown color is when I've done a run that day, and this green is when I've done strength training. So this just gives me a really nice, quick at a glance of like my steps, as well as at the bottom here, I note down my average steps for that month, the high, so the highest day, the lowest step day, and then I just count the number of runs that I do and the number of strength training workouts. And yeah, it's pretty simple. I just really like having this. Like, it's very satisfying to see this at the end of the year. And I do like being able to see if my average is going down or if I'm starting to run longer distances. It's very motivating to see my highest days kind of creeping up. And it's also a really nice way to see how frequently I'm running or doing my strength training, because I am trying to keep up a relatively regular exercise routine. So I do really like this thread. This is another page that I really love. This kind of evolved over time from my health and wellness tracker. So the way I set this up is I decided on 3 symptoms that I wanted to pay close attention to throughout the year. And for me, it's anxiety, it's my sleep, and it's my skin issues. I track these things, among other things, on a daily basis. This is kind of more like a dashboard where I'm not so concerned about the specific hours that I've slept or my specific rating of, how my skin is going or my specific anxiety rating. I'm more so wanting to see what are days where things are really bad and they need attention versus they should be monitored, or things are great, don't need to pay attention. So I kind of have this legend here. Big circle means it needs attention. Circle outline is monitor. And then a little dot means maintain. Things are good. I really like this as kind of like an at a glance. And then if there's an event that I think is worth highlighting, I guess, then I put a little square around that day. And then I add a note on the side here. So for example, I get regular allergy shots and I had a negative reaction for the second time. So I just recorded it down here on the 2nd of February. That way, if I'm at my allergist and we're trying to figure out what's going on or they need some information, I have a record of it here that I can easily pull up. And I can also see if there's any potential patterns. Like, I'm noticing here that I had quite a few really bad sleep nights. And I mean, I don't know, but what if, like, it would be interesting just to note that it so happened that I had a reaction around the after I had a string of like not so great sleeping nights. So I really love this, and I love that it's actually at the front of my book because I think it's just easy to access, especially if I'm at a doctor or anything like that. This next one is my favorite meals and my recipe log. This was also originally inspired by my Hobonichi layout. So there's a 100 list in the Hobonichi weeks that I had kind of turned into a meal, like a favorite meals place where I had one column for spring meals, summer, autumn, winter. And I just copied that out in here. And so when I'm planning meals, if I'm having trouble thinking of meals to make, then I can always I can always reference this page to look for some inspiration. And I just find this really helpful because I have a terrible memory and I'm a creature of habits. So I could cook the same, like I'll think of the same like 5 things to cook every week, but I'll get bored of eating it. And in the past, that has led to me not cooking, and then we end up getting takeout, and then it gets really frustrating. And so I just like having a list of things that I know that I've made in the past and that I enjoy, and I update this list each year. And then on this side, I log down recipes that I'm trying, not necessarily favorites, just recipes. And if they're good and I like them, they'll probably make their way over here for next year. this is my first like non-collections page. So what happened was I actually created a few more collections, but I kept this space blank because I dedicated every single Sunday in this book towards being like a bit of a weekly dashboard kind of page. So this section here is basically something that I took from my health and wellness weeks, and then I added this into my Hobonichi A6 when I did my one book July experiment, and it basically stuck. And so these are the habits and the different things that I'm tracking. So you can see here, like I track different habits, like which days I run, which days I do strength training, which days I journal, different medications and supplements I'm taking, my mood, my anxiety, my energy, my sleep, and then my skin issues. So whether I have a flare up and what some of my symptoms are. And I do this tracking on a daily basis. And then I take some of these and then I update my symptom tracker. So because I had dedicated a few of these early January days into these collections, this one goes from January 1st to the 11th. But typically I've set this up so that the Sunday is just the week coming up. So if I had, you'll see it later, but basically, usually I'm just tracking 7 days at a time on Sundays. And then I wasn't planning yet at this stage. We were actually still away on our vacation. And so what I did down here was I just used this as a bit of a daily log of what we did each day. And I tend to do this when I'm traveling just because I like to remember what I did. And I find this helps me if I want to journal about it later. It's just something that I reference all the time. And so I really actually like how much I could fit on these 2 pages. And then up here, I just have a currently inked. This is travel edition, so different pens that I had brought and inked on my trip. And then here I just swatched out a few of my permanent document brown inks that I've tried so far. And so you'll see this throughout my Hibino. I do have a lot of empty spaces, and I like that because I do come back sometimes and add to them later. Like right now, these are the 3 brown inks that I've tried and inked, but I do have another document brown ink that when I ink it into a pen, I can come back here and I can swatch it out here, and then I'll always kind of have this place where I can reference my brown inks and how they look on this paper. These are more collections, so I have books read, I have movies watched, TV shows watched, and letters sent. A fun fact, since I am doing NaNoWriMo, I've mentioned this in my previous video, but I received over 80 requests for letters, and I've made the crazy decision that I'm going to try to respond to everybody who requested a letter. And so originally when I made this tracker, I only had 88 letters. But if I do successfully write a letter to everyone who signed up, then I'm going to fill this up, which is motivating, but it means I'm probably going to have to make another collections page for this. So that's something that I'm thinking about. I'm not sure if maybe I should create a separate spread altogether for NaNoWriMo. I haven't decided yet, but I have tons of like room in here. So I'm not worried about not being able to document it. Here is my weekly spread. Normally this is actually what's on my Sundays. I misspoke. My Sundays are actually this weekly spread. So this is a layout that is replacing my weekly supplement basically, where I have this weekly spread, and it's where I'm able to kind of plan out at the beginning of the week all my meetings, so I can kind of get a sense of like how busy it's going to be and how much focus time I'm going to have, that kind of thing. I did it on the Friday here just because we were still on vacation, and I did have to start planning out some different events. And so that's what I love about the Hibino is it's so flexible that you can set this up like earlier, if that makes sense, because this is this is the Sunday for the following week, but I needed one more week and I had already used up all these pages. So I was able to kind of just set this up as needed. And I was able to put in all of the different things that I needed to remember to do. I have my days here and I pre-set this up for the entire year before I even moved into the book. And I'm so pleased and happy with my past self for doing this because I was able to set this up when I was motivated, because I knew that I sometimes have to just jump on things when I have the motivation, because when I don't have the motivation, that's when I'm going to feel like there's too many steps in order to start planning, and then I'm just going to want to abandon the book. So because I was so motivated last year and I was so excited about moving into this, I set all of my weeks up in advance. And that just means that when I'm getting ready to plan for my week, this is one less thing that I have to do, and I can just jump in and start putting in my meetings and that kind of thing. So I'm really happy that I did that. And I think because I do struggle with motivation, I've learned to just try to work with my motivation levels. And sometimes that means pushing through things and doing them anyway. And other times it means leaning into the moments when I am motivated to do something and doing it then. So I have my days here. I make use of the hourly timeline, and then I just copied it over here so that I could use it for this side. So yeah, I just do my meetings in different color coding depending on the project or the type of work. And then over here, I just kind of have like an ongoing weekly to-do list, or I'll put meetings or future dates that I want to remember. Like if I've made plans with a friend to go for dinner well in advance, I'll put it here instead of in here because things change and move around sometimes. So I like to put it in here just so I know that I've made that plan. And then when the week actually comes up, then I'll have a chance to reconfirm it or change things around if I need to. Because I, again, had kind of used up a few of my pages for collections and I kind of needed to write things down, I used my Saturday page kind of as a running to-do list page for several days. And I actually liked this a lot, and I think this could be a really cool way to use the Hibino if you wanted to keep all of your to-do lists for, say, the week together. And then you could have the remaining pages be more as like journaling or scratch notes or whatever. I still prefer for now to keep my days related to, like my to-do list related to the day. But having tried this out, some days you just don't have as much of a big to-do list. Like if you have a really big task that takes up the whole day, you just have a smaller to-do list, but like you don't need as much room to write down what you need to do. And I just love how much you could fit. I also have some notes down here for when I went to the vet. This looks really neat, but these were notes that I was taking at the vet's office. And normally when I have a bigger line spacing, I feel like my writing just gets messier. But when I have this tiny grid, it's not that neat, but it just looks neater because it's a smaller grid somehow. And then I just have like a little medication schedule that I wrote out for coconut. Sometimes in this different color, I'll do some micro journaling or I'll add different thoughts. And then this side is where I do my tracking for the beginning of the week. And then I am able to dedicate a section down here for meal planning. So this is pretty much how I've been meal planning for the last few years, but it's just now in my Hibino as opposed to my Hobonichi weeks. But basically this is my shopping list where I start by thinking about what I already have in the freezer. I write down some meal ideas that I'm thinking about making for the upcoming week. And then I make the shopping list accordingly. And then down here in my weekly spread, I will write down the meals that I'm thinking about making on which night, which is based on my work schedule. So if I'm working late on a certain night, that means that I'm going to make it a leftovers night. I have tons of videos on how I meal plan, so I won't go too far into it. But if you do have any questions about my approach, then let me know and I will do my best to answer you in the comments. in terms of my daily pages, this is how I've been setting it up. So on this side, I've been making use of the timeline and copying out my meetings. I'm not sure if I will do this for the rest of the year, but this is just what I'm doing for now because when I had the Hobonichi and the weekly supplement, I could have my weekly supplement open on my desk as a reference because it was separate from my Hobonichi A6. But this being a one book with my weeklies in here, I don't have this page open on my desk all the time. So what I've been kind of doing is sort of similar to how I was using the Cousin a few years ago, where I will put my schedule in the weekly, but I will keep my dailies open on my desk. And so it is a little repetitive, but I've been copying out my meetings again on this page so that I don't have to keep flipping to my weekly throughout the day. So that's what I use this left column for. I also experimented with maybe doing a little bit of logging in here, but I didn't really feel like that was that helpful. So I didn't continue that. And then I split the page into like 3 columns. And in this column, I tend to make this my to-do list. And then in this column, it's kind of like notes for the day. So it's just whatever I need it for. Like here's a little checklist for something I was working on. This is sort of like a little meeting summary. So I had a meeting with a friend and this is where I summarize it so I can have a memory of like what we talked about in case I need to follow up on something. Here is just some notes on a YouTube video that I was about to film. So it could be really just anything. And it's amazing like how much you can fit in this column. And these pages I've been using more as longer notes. So this page is a really interesting example where I was trying to look up something and I ended up having to kind of go back and forth and email different organizations and wait for their response. And it was a lot of like back and forth. And so this page was quite empty for quite some time. But as I got more information, so you can see like I emailed an organization on January 11th. They responded on the 13th. I was able to write their response. Then I emailed another organization on the 14th. They responded. This was their response. Here were some like notes on the response. And then I had to contact another organization and this was their response. And so I'm finding these pages kind of fill up like very organically, but it's been so wonderful to have all of my notes related to this topic on one page. And then if I need to go back to this later, I have it documented over here. So I don't mind that these pages are constantly a work in progress, but I am just loving this so much because sometimes things don't resolve in one day and I just love being able to go back. This is probably one of my like favorite things about this book is it just gives me a space to kind of go back and reference. This is a pen test page with Konpeki. Anytime I get a new pen or when I'm trying to compare pens, I use my Konpeki, my Pilot Irizuku Konpeki as my sort of constant ink color, just so that I can tell how pens differ from each other. And I really like to have a page in my planners or journals that allows me to make those comparisons. So this page is kind of empty now, but as the year goes on, as I ink more of my pens with my Konpeki, this is a place that I can go back to and make that comparison. And then on this side, I have some notes on when I'm printing my stickers. At my workshop, I was testing out one of the participants, 2 of her pens. And I just like being able to kind of play around, like have a place to kind of write this down. And then I also just have some ink thoughts from different pens and ink combinations. So these are often places that I will come back to if I am maybe needing a little break from work. I will kind of flip back to old pages, find some blank space, and just fill them up. And I am really loving that. So here's an example of like spaces that are still empty, but maybe at some point I'll go back and add some ink thoughts, or maybe they'll stay blank. On this page, I have written out a recipe that I wanted to try. Here we just have a few more recipes, and I was trying out the Deco Rush. I was testing out some acrylic markers. Here we have my health tracker and my meal planning. And I've been using more stamps. Some care instructions for a 3D printed vase that my sister got me for Christmas. Some more ink swatches. And here's just some information on dust mite allergies and recommendations on things you can do. We had to go out of town for a vet dermatologist, so there wasn't really like a big to-do list. So I had written to do, and then I ended up coloring it out. But we did have a pretty detailed debrief and a bunch of different medications and things that we had to do for Coconut. So I just kind of wrote it all down here, and it was really helpful because a few weeks later we had to see our regular vet, and they hadn't received this information yet. So it was really good to be able to pull this up in the meeting and be able to communicate some of the things that we had discussed at the vet dermatologist. So I find this just easier than like pulling up your phone and trying to find your notes. And I don't know, I just like being able to access it in my planner right away. Here's some more ink swatches. I've also been using my stamps a little more frequently, and I'm trying to challenge myself to use stamps instead of stickers. These are some stamps that I bought from Nicole Josephine, and I think it's been a really fun challenge to actually using these stamps, because I have in the past bought stamps and like struggled to use them. And so I've been really trying to see this as an opportunity to kind of force myself to use my stamp collection. And this is one of her stamps, and then I just colored it in with an acrylic marker. This is one of my Johann stamps. I've had this stamp for a really long time, and I just colored that in as well. And then over here, I have some study notes from a journal article that I read on doom scrolling. I just have it currently inked. More study notes, my habit tracker for the week. And over here, I also have a medication schedule checklist for Coconut, because as you can see, every day we had to do something slightly different. So, well, it started on this day. So I found this really helpful just to kind of write it out, so that each day I could just reference and not have to rely on my memory to remember what to give him. And I just bundled Saturday and Sunday together because I use Sundays for my weekly spread. More meeting notes. This is some micro journaling that I was doing. I was just feeling a lot of feelings, and so I wrote some of them down here. So another journal article that I read on social media, doom scrolling, anxiety, and psychological resilience. We are having some issues with our microwave, and we had to start doing some shopping. So here's where I just wrote down a few different models and prices and measurements of our microwave. Another recipe on this side. Here are some notes that I took on some ultrasound that we might have to do for Coconut. And then I left this space blank here because I'm planning on checking in with our pet insurance to see if it'll get covered, and whatever the resolution is, I will put down here. And so I know that I can go back to this page and I can see what the resolution was for this thing that we need to potentially do. And then around it, I just have some notes for like video ideas. I have some notes for a Patreon post. On this page, I have just used it as a place to write down, I guess sketch out some living room layout ideas. Just thinking about shifting around some furniture in our living room as we potentially shop for furniture. It's just good to have some measurements handy. And then here is just some more notes from the vet. So you can see, again, it's really quick notes that I'm taking on the spot, but I feel like it just looks a little neater because the boxes are smaller. And then you can see, like, for meal planning, I've put some potential things that I know we need. So as I realize we need things, then I have a space where I can just put them down in advance. And I use 2 clips. So I have a clip here for the week we're in, and then I have another clip that I use for 2 weeks from now. And then the way I was using this bookmark is for the actual day that we're in. That way, when I open it, I am able to just go quickly to the day. I am just finding this so functional and so helpful. In just 1 month of using this, I have referred back to these pages so many times. I really haven't felt the need to get a different notebook. I just feel like for now, everything is fitting in here, and this is just my dream because it's a book that I think is beautiful. I'm enjoying being in it, but it's also very functional. Another thing that I've been doing is I've been adding like little future sticky notes throughout the book. This was inspired by something my coworker did for me once. I had one of those 365 tearaway calendars on my desk at work, and she took sticky notes and drew little messages for me that I would find as I got to that date. So it was kind of like a little fun surprise, and I thought it would just be nice to add a little fun surprise for myself. So I have here, like, randomly in April, are you still using this book? I have another one here in July where when I know it's going to be really hot in the middle of our summer, and I just wrote, do you remember when it was winter and it was so cold that Coconut refused to go outside? And I've just sprinkled these kinds of notes throughout my book, and I think it'll just add an extra something to my future self, just to kind of keep me, I guess, engaged in the book. In terms of covers, in case you're curious, Ximena 1660 said that they use the Oxnight cover, and it also fits a half-year Hobonichi, which I'm guessing is the Avec. Leslie English 6949 said that they use the Salty Katie cover. There's a clear and a glitter option that fit the Hibino. And there's also the Midori Belly Band cover. And the Hobonichi Search and Collect does fit, but it is tight. And Dessert Gal also said that the 5-year fits, but it is tight. So I think generally what I'm gathering from this is the Hobonichi 5-year covers, they do fit, but they are tight. And then there's also a few other options out there in case you're looking for another cover. And if you're planning on adding a lot of bulk to your Hibino, I would not recommend the POTR Stroll because it's quite a tight fit as it is. I would be cautious about bulking this up even more. And then I did get some writing tips from a few others. So people mentioned adding a book under the cover to help with the writing experience, and also like folding the book onto itself. I'm surprised with how much I'm loving it. I thought it would be good, but I was a little worried that had so little structure that I thought maybe I would get bored, but so far I have not gotten bored. And in fact, I've been enjoying going back to old pages and just filling them up. Sometimes when I just feel like I need a break or I'm feeling a little bit anxious, I like to just flip through my pages, and it just brings me a lot of satisfaction. I will say having the weeklies separate throughout the book is maybe a little harder to plan. I felt like when I had the weekly supplement, having them all bundled together made it really easy for me to just flip to future dates and make plans really quickly. But I'm finding that, flipping to future weeks when they're separate like this, I don't find it as easy to do that. And so I've thought about whether it's maybe I use the monthlies as that sort of future planner, because I can kind of write future dates and see, like, get that overview here, which is probably how people use the monthly in the first place. I've just never really found, I don't know, I've tried using monthlies in that way, but because plans constantly change, it just ended up being a lot of crossouts, and it just became really difficult to like see things properly. That's something that I will think about. And I think if I could choose, I would probably have kept the monthlies together. I don't think it's a deal breaker for this book. It's just something that I've observed. It's been really hard to not use stickers. I have such a big sticker collection, and it's so tempting, even like in a little space like this, to just pop in a little sticker or a space here. But I'm so worried about this book fluffing up too much and not fitting this cover that I've really been holding myself back. And I don't know if I'm overthinking it. I probably am, but it has been challenging. At the same time, it's been, I guess, a really good excuse or opportunity for me to use my stamps. I don't have a particularly large stamp collection, but I do have stamps that I have bought and just don't really use. This is pretty much my stamp collection. It's not that big. I don't use these stamps that frequently, and so it has been a really nice opportunity to just kind of revisit these and use them. And also with all of these stamps, I think these are kind of nice because you can color them in and just add some, like, add a pop of color to your pages. Not that you have to do that. I just think I would like that. And I really love that this is a real all-in-one book for me. I think last year I thought of my Hobonichi as an all-in-one, but it was technically the Techo original and the weekly supplement. And then I also had that cousin in the background that I would kind of pull out when I needed it. But I think in here, like, it's just eliminated the need for me to have those 3 books. Yes, I do have some empty pages, but I haven't had a problem going back and filling them in. And even if they are blank and they stay blank, I think that's okay too. I know we're only 1 month in, so I will definitely share more updates, and I will be completely honest with you. If this changes and I lose motivation and I find myself getting overwhelmed, it's possible, you know? It's always possible that I'm in the honeymoon phase. If you are still here, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this update. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you did decide to use the Hibino this year, let me know how it's going. And if you're not in the Hibino, I would love to know how things are going in general. I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon in the next video.